There's this strict call for all of us to remain ordered to the truth that of love and of our relationship, that it is when we're abiding in Christ, that when we're united in Him, that's how we can love rightly. Love in marriage has an order to it that we've got to recognize. Like, God who created marriage, who's the author of marriage, as He's is the author of life and all of creation, ordered things. God is a God of order, not a God of chaos. Like, you look in Genesis and you see how the ordering of creation on the first day, on the second day, on the third day, all the way down, and then to this crescendo of creating man and woman and calling them to the one flesh union. Where they're no longer two but one flesh, and it's beautiful, right? And so love itself has an order, and that's what happened whenever Adam and Eve, when they turned away in the garden. It's like the out of order sign came up, right? You ever been to a club or want to go to a vending machine? It says out of order. It doesn't say broken, doesn't say it needs to be fixed. It says out of order. That there was something that it's not working in the proper order, right? And what ended up happening in our relationship with man and woman, we see that in Genesis, is that their relationship together became disordered, and so therefore their ability to love, they went out of order. And Christ comes to repair, right? But He doesn't want to just fix it and then walk away. He wants us and calls us to abide with Him, to abide in Him. In Matthew's Gospel, Matthew, I think it's chapter 10, he says, whoever loves father, mother, or son, daughter, wife, children more than me is not worthy of me. And then in Luke's Gospel, he says, a little bit harsher, he says, Luke chapter, I think it's, 14, if anyone comes to me without first hating his wife, mother, husband, father, children, even his own life, is not worthy of me, cannot be my disciple. And these very strong words of Christ to call us out, to say that we've got to hate first. And what is He saying? And I think this is part of that hyperbole where He talks about, like, if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off. If your eye causes you to sin, gouge it out. Better to go into life lame than to go into damnation, kind of thing. So I think that there's this strict call for all of us to remain ordered to the truth that of love and of our relationship, that it is when we're abiding in Christ, that when we're united in Him, that's how we can love rightly. That if we try to disorder that love, if we try to put our love for others ahead of God, we fall into trouble. If we try to put our love for our spouse or our children ahead of what God is calling us to do and asking of us, then we get ourselves into trouble. You look at the 10 Commandments, the first 3 of the 10 Commandments deal with this priority of this relationship with God, and the remainder talk about our relationship with others. And the greatest commandment, the greatest, is to love God with all of our heart, all of our mind, all of our strength, and all of our soul. And then the second greatest commandment is to love our neighbor. So I think that's not just like an ordering, but it's also like the ability, like our ability to then love others rightly is when we're first united truly in Christ, that when we have that abiding relationship, that we're listening to Him. That's why in love it's also that love is, the foundation is in God. We see in Matthew chapter 7, everyone who listens to these words of mine and acts on them will be like a wise man who built his house on rock. When we don't listen, when we turn away, when we don't follow what He's asking us, the divine architect for our lives, then we're going to miss out. We're going to have just some knowledge and we're not going to live it out, and we're going to lose out on that foundation. So we have our ordering, our foundation, and our strength is in God. Our strength to love, as we're called to love, is found in Jesus Christ. He says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. So our way to Christ, our way in our relationship is found in Christ. And all this is leading us to that witness of, as Christ called us to love in Ephesians chapter 5, He says, husbands, love others. Love your husbands. Love your wives, rather, as Christ loved the church. And so how did Christ love the church? He laid down His life for His bride. For what purpose? To sanctify her. So the ordering, the strength, the foundation, the way, and the direction of how our love is met is found in Christ. How we're called to do this can only be done in Christ Jesus.